Hi, everybody, and welcome to this first Companion Energy webinar. Happy that you're here. Hope you're as enthusiastic as we are about hosting these webinars. This will be the first in a series of webinars that we'll do over the coming months, all around the topics of industrial energy management, topics that we see that are hot with our customers, that are hot with industrial companies in this transition to renewable energy. And the topic that we're about to talk to today is matching industrial energy demand with renewables, and going from annual matching, which is currently the practice, and with guarantees of origin or renewable energy certificates, towards hourly matching of renewable energy, a topic that we see getting more and more attention in today's environment. If you have any questions, share them in the chat. There's a chat, and then we'll talk for about 15-20 minutes, and then we have about 10 minutes left to answer your questions, if you have any, of course. All right, let's dive right in. So, matching industrial energy demand with renewables. The session today will be given by Thomas and myself. We're both the co-founders of Companion.energy. If after this session you think, wow, those guys, I heard them talk enough, don't worry, the next webinars that we'll be hosting, there will be other guests speaking as well. We're inviting a couple of our customers on these webinar sessions to talk about industrial energy management, and also some experts that we think are really cool and interesting to talk to. So that's a little bit the plan for today. So going immediately into the topic of industrial energy demand, matching industrial energy demand with renewables. What's in the name? Well, this topic has been gathering some attention over the last months and years. It has been kind of a buzzword bingo sometimes. Different companies talk about different, let's say, words. Google mentioning carbon-free energy around the clock. A startup that's very prominent in this business is called FlexiDAO. They are talking about 24/7 renewable energy matching. Microsoft, who's also big working on this, talk about the 100-100-0 goal, basically talking about 100% electricity being 100% matched to renewable or like to electricity production with a zero carbon intensity. So that's their goal. But what is the principle, or like what does this concept basically mean? Well, in simple terms, it is matching your energy demand with renewable energy production on an hourly basis. In this example case, this is a graph coming from Google. You can see they have the energy demand of a certain data center that they're operating, and they are matching it through either wind turbine that they have contracted through a power purchase agreement, a PPA, or through an or that they put on site. And they're really checking on an hourly basis how much of our energy demand is coming from the grid, or how much of our energy demand is coming from wind power, solar power, these kinds of things. So this is basically how these companies are talking about it, and that is the basic concept of hourly matching of renewable energy. So in a basic terms, where are we coming from? Up to this point, the megawatt hour or the kilowatt hour you've been using on Christmas Eve, for example, could be offset by using a guarantee of origin or a renewable energy certificate, depending on where you are, by solar PV, a kilowatt hour or a megawatt hour that was generated in summertime. And that would mean at the moment that you are 100% renewable. Now, with these new frameworks, these new elements, we're really going into saying that, okay, the electricity you consume on Christmas Eve, if you consume it with a green certificate, a guarantee of origin that's coming from summertime solar PV generation, it's no longer considered a renewable thing. You really need to time and location match your renewable energy consumption.
Given that you're talking about Belgium, could be challenging to find some solar hours to match your energy with, of course. Maybe to get some feeling with what are the numbers behind this, or what would this imply for maybe your energy mix? We ran some simulations. So for the simulation, we considered 10 gigawatt hour per year consumption profile It's a fairly typical industrial consumption profile. And we matched it up with a wind production profile. This is a Belgian offshore wind profile, also of 10 gigawatt hours per year. So in terms of the totals, it's equal. And then also a 10 gigawatt hours per year solar profile. And this is also for Belgian solar production. And in order to give you some more sense with what's actually the difference between this annual matching and this hourly and maybe 15-minute matching, what's the impact actually? We ran some numbers because we like, of course, numbers, and we'd like to quiz you a bit on it. So you'll see in the poll tab, you'll see some things popping up. You'll see 3 questions, and you need to guess the numbers that would appear on the next slides in A, B, and C. So how it works is we run different scenarios. If you just consider the 10 gigawatt hours of consumption, it of course means that you're not matched with any renewable energy. So in annual terms, that means 0. In hourly terms, that means 0. In 15 minutes, that means 0%. That wouldn't be too difficult. Then if you're looking annually, all the other scenarios are 100%. So if you match up the consumption with 100% of the PV, it's 10 gigawatt hours consumption, 10 gigawatt hours of solar, 100% matched. The next one is 100%, so 10 gigawatt hours of consumption with 10 gigawatt hours of wind, 100% matched on annual terms. The next one is 10 gigawatt hours consumption, 5 gigawatt hours of PV, 5 gigawatt hours of wind. Again, perfectly matched on annual basis. Consumption, 10 gigawatt hours with 5 gigawatt hours of PV, 5 gigawatt hours of wind. And then we ran 2 battery scenarios with a 1 megawatt hour battery and a 5 megawatt hour battery. And the battery is fully oriented towards optimizing the self-consumption of these renewables. So we ran these for you with the implications on an hourly basis and on a minute-by-minute basis. If you didn't take a pick yet, feel free to do so. I see some numbers coming in already. For the A, most people think this is going to be
21%.
21%. For number B, the 65 is kind of winning here. And typically the difference between hourly and 15 minutes, most people estimate it at 5 to 10%. There's some strong competition going on the question number B, I see. Let's not longer keep you in waiting.
Let's wait for 20 seconds.
You want to wait it out still?
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah?
Ready? I'm ready. Thanks for voting.
Yeah. All right, so here you go. With just the solar profile, you'll end up at 37% of an hourly match. 2 people were right about that. It was not the winning option. For B, if you sort of make a mix of solar and of wind and add a big battery to it, you'll end up at 75. Again, not the winning option. Most people are more pessimistic. And C, the difference between hourly and 15-minute. People think it would be a bit bigger, but it's 3 to 5%, so not huge. The biggest takeaways here are mixing different sources is, of course, better. Adding storage to it is, of course, better. As well, hourly and 15 minutes. Yeah, the difference are mostly seasonal because, in summer, the sun shines. In winter, not so much. So whether you do it on an hourly or 15-minute basis, it typically doesn't make a huge difference, as you can see. But disclaimer, of course, matters on your specific profile and on the specific profiles of the production you either have on site of the ones that you contract. This is actually a fairly easy simulation to run. So if any of you have a profile lying around somewhere and want to check this out, feel free to send it over and we can run a short simulation for you. But of course, we know what it is. We know now it has an impact on the numbers, but why the hell would you be interested in something like this or trying to move towards hourly matching? Well, there's a couple of benefits associated to it. An environmental benefit, of course, it's pretty obvious that it's a fairer way of accounting for renewable energy. So it reduces emissions and promotes renewable energy overall. It also has economic advantages. So usually, or definitely now, with the cost curves of solar, for example, renewable energy that you produce on site is definitely more expensive than the ones you would consume from the grids powered by fossil sources. So if you do this intelligently, it can also reduce your costs. Innovation, doing this prepares you for a future of energy management that is much more data-driven than in the past. There are some regulatory benefits to it. We do expect big changes in the way renewable energy is certified and accounted for, even affecting sometimes the license to operate of companies. So it's better to be prepared and proactive rather than reactive and being caught by surprise by some regulation. Also, reputation, of course, very important. We didn't include one right in this overview, but I'll include it in the next slide, and that's commercial. Something that not many companies are actively working on or considering right from the get-go. But we do see that to get this journey going, it's really important to also think about how you can build this into a competitive differentiator. And if, for instance, the example that Jonas gave about Google, and that we'll also expand on, it's really a key commercial aspect for them as well. They're tapping into a higher willingness to pay of their customers when it comes to fully matched renewable energy. So definitely something for you to consider. If you start making investments, start doing efforts, like what's the return on investment here for me as a company in some value chains, for instance, automotive, it started being a really important commercial driver as well. Now, okay, we know why to do it. Now, how to get started, of course, not easy. We typically segment it into 7 steps. I'll briefly go through them, but we're also publishing a blog article later today about different steps and more detail to it. But it all starts with an assessment and planning, like where are you today? Probably, or we hope that you procure 100% green energy, but what would it mean in terms of hourly matching and 15-minute matching? And based on that, you can set some objectives in time, usually some milestones that you'd like to achieve. That's really the basis. Then you need to think about sourcing sufficient and the right mix of renewables. So mix is important, the size is important, and how to manage as well certain risks associated with, for instance, injection price risk with solar starts getting pretty relevant in these days markets. Then third step is usually smart management, like what can you do through demand side steering or to flexibility in order to match up your demand better with the production of the renewables that you sourced. You might run into some gaps still, or if there's not a lot of flexibility available, or it takes some time, looking into storage might be a possibility or might be attractive too. We included an icon of a battery, which is a typical example, but we do have some customers looking into cooling buffers, heating buffers, which are, of course, thermal storage options, but also excellent for this purpose as heating and, for instance, electrifying at rapid pace. Then collaboration. Well, it's not easy to do this, and it typically requires some collaboration in the value chain. So with your utilities, it can be with peers in the same, if you're oriented in a cluster, for instance, or in some business park where you can do energy sharing. That all matters and helps you get to your objectives. We even see competitors collaborating on it because, well, energy is typically in the indirect spend, so it's not, that important or that of a strategic differentiator sometimes, and it's just out of a purpose that companies try to collaborate, even competitors. And then monitoring is important when you're ongoing and doing these efforts. You need to know and track what your improvements are. We have some great examples later in the presentation, and also engagement with the stakeholders, with your customers, with your employees, with your regulators, also with other policy bodies in the markets that you're active in. It's really important to champion the efforts that you do and also inspire others to go on the same journey. One side note with the renewable sourcing, we're talking a lot about hourly matching, and it might give the impression that it's only about time, but it is also about other things. It's also about the origin. Are these new renewable energy sources? And what's the geographical correlation next to the temporal correlation between this production and consumption of energy? I included here a small snapshot of the green hydrogen sort of regulation and research that the European Union is conducting. with green hydrogen, they really want to avoid that people call something green hydrogen, which is effectively electrolyzed by fossil fuels through this sort of non-time matched. So that's an application area where they're really going into lots of detail. So it can be a sort of inspiration of where this is heading. For these kind of things, we add all the sources in the presentation and you receive it afterwards. So no need to type everything down. You'll get this afterwards. Okay, but then maybe Jonas, some concrete examples on how to do this.
Some concrete examples. So first, starting off with one of the players that's really pushing this forward is Google. So big tech, Google, Microsoft, but also we are seeing other companies in the Belgian market that have data centers or that provide data center services to other companies that really are pushing for this 24/7 matching. So some stuff about Google: they have over 20 terawatt hours of electricity consumption, which is crazy high, and have more than 10 gigawatts of renewable electricity production contracted. So that's about the base load of Belgium, I would say. Maybe not on a winter day, it's more like 14, 15, but 10 gigawatts is like a very average base load in Belgium. And they're pushing it also regarding to software tooling, collaborating with different other players in the market. Like a first one that Thomas talked about, this renewable energy sourcing. If you look at a graph on the two graphs on the left side, really that's where you really see the difference between having this old system of guarantees of origin or renewable energy certificates and comparing it with this system that Google calls TEACs, which I wrote it down here on the left side, is short for time-based energy attribute certificates. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but basically what it means is that you see it on the left side here. There's an example for a case in the Midwest of the US where they bought wind, or for a solar park in Denmark, where if you use the guarantees of origin or renewable energy certificates, you are just 100% renewable for a certain month. But if you go really into matching it on an hourly basis, you can see that with the use of these certificates, that you end up with let's say a lower number, and that's like really something to analyze and something we're working with also with customers of ours to see if they want to source new renewable energy sources into their portfolio, either on site or through a PPA. What's the impact on their total their matching of renewable energy?
The graphs are way more beautiful too, I would say.
All right. We'll show one example in the end of the slides. And then, of course, Thomas talked a lot about smart management and flexibility. That's something we are pushing for. And Google is doing that in two interesting ways. One of them is they have, of course, data centers in different locations, spread out over America, different locations in America, but also different locations in Europe. And then they really go into shifting load in different data centers based on how much solar or wind production there is in a specific location. And the presentation you'll get afterwards, we couldn't get it to work in the live stream software. There is a short video and animation here that you can see where they really show that they can time shift, let's say, load from one data center to another data center based on how much sun or wind there is at a certain location.
Yeah, something more for the digital sort of world, let's say.
Exactly.
Not much for the goods manufacturing.
Yeah, so that's a little bit harder one, let's say, for most of our industrial customers.
This is right.
This is one that's more relevant, I would say, for a lot of companies. It's basically time shifting your energy demand, right? So Google has a certain, let's say, load that they have on their data centers, and they have a certain amount of base load that they can time shift, some calculations that need to be done just during the day, but can be shifted through, it can be done at 11 o'clock in the morning, or it can be done at 4 in the morning. And so basically what they do is they time shift certain energy consumption, certain calculation work based on the carbon intensity in the grid, or on how much solar or wind there is being produced at that time. And that's something that we're seeing with our customers as well. We have one customer, a biotech customer, that they have some flexibility in the cooling and in their water purification process. And with our software, we're helping them to basically time shift their consumption on those two large energy consumers to improve the amount of matched renewable energy, but also save electricity costs. Of course, that's always a double option.
Yeah, and on that, maybe very quickly, we see that the cost savings potential, it's really, I think that customer, they save 10 to 15. I mean,
Yeah.
on some good days, even I saw above 20% even, depending on the fluctuation you have in the energy price. So it can really be a savings next to the sustainability as well.
Yes, that's true. And then then on the monitoring, definitely also something that Google has some great resources on that. You can find on their website how they track basically their carbon heat maps for all their different data centers, with some great overviews of how their electricity consumption, how green it actually is for every hour of the year at different locations around the world. And then, as Thomas said, collaboration. We see a lot of collaboration in this space, both between Google, Microsoft, and startups, between Google and Microsoft together, really working together to make this thing a reality. But also, and that's something that we're seeing more and more also with our customers, collaborations that are necessary between the utilities or the electricity providers, let's say, and the energy consumers, which is, of course, important to make this into a reality.
It's probably because, I mean, you need so many capabilities in order to do this. It needs to be on the procurement side. So there's a human advice aspect to it, but it's also a deep data analysis and monitoring. So that's why I guess it's a bit of a mix of large corporates, startups, advisory that you see over here. It's not all very far away from home or only in the big tech industries. In Belgium, Colruyt Group, it's a retailer. They are, for instance, very forward in sort of publishing their goals related to this. They have a goal of by 2030 having a 90% on their large sites alignment between renewable energy, electricity generation and consumption, and they really transparently share their progress against that objective. So that's an initiative we definitely applaud. But not only Colruyt can do this, all our customers can do this as well. So this is a snapshot of our software. We really focus on this, enabling data backbone of all the financial, emissions, and operational information related to energy. So this is one of our customers, an example with, I think it's a combination of wind PPA, solar on site, and a consumption profile. Beautiful graph, if you ask me. Maybe we should put an award to the nicest heat map and then print it out for Christmas or something and send to one of our customers. But this is something we offer out of the box. So again, if this interests you, don't hesitate to reach out. This was it for now for the content part. So if you have some questions now, start already typing them up in the chat. We'd be happy to answer them. If you are hungry for more after this first webinar, we have the next webinars already planned. We'll launch the events on LinkedIn soon, but the next one we're very excited about that. Jan Rosenaw, who's really an authority or a guru in terms of industrial electrification and energy management. He'll join us to talk about the barriers and the breakthroughs related to industrial electrification. And in May, there's one of our customers, Irma, from Equins joining us to talk about the EV-centric future, so electric vehicle charging, how to do it in a renewable, reliable, and flexible way. It will be very cool as well. And in the meanwhile, if you're interested in this topic, we publish regularly some blogs on our website and some short videos on our YouTube channel about key concepts related to industrial energy management. If you have some feedback from us after this webinar, you're welcome to scan the QR code here and to leave a short note for us. Will help us improve towards the next sessions, and looking forward to some of your questions. We see there's one
from
Monse.
You said that when customers match their energy on an hourly basis, they can save 10 to 15% of energy costs, but how much additional costs does it imply for them?
I think so we have one example of a company that saves this 10 to 15%, and they didn't do actually additional investments. This is purely based on an existing site layout where they have some slack capacity and some buffer capacity, and a renewable solar plant, so a solar PV plant on their roof, and they are just aligning their consumption better with the solar generation. For instance, buffering, cooling power with excess solar. So this was an example that they really didn't need extra investments for. But yeah, I can imagine that some customers really, if you want to get to the 100% investments in storage, it's not cheap. Investments in indeed solar generation or wind generation can require some capex. But there's also, to get started, you don't need necessarily to invest heavily.
No, if I can add to that, so we basically see two cases with customers right now. Either lots of industrial players actually have some flexibility in at least some parts of their production capacity. So that's the first one, where it's like basically free to use it extra. You just have to activate the buffer capacity. And a second one, and that's a big one that we're seeing right now, is that number of companies are investing in electrification, so switching from a gas boiler or a steam boiler towards an electrified alternative. And there it can make the difference between having a much higher cost in heating towards actually being like at least competitive with the gas alternative, or being even cheaper, depending on the period of the year. Because if you just replace, for example, a gas boiler one-on-one with, let's say, an electrified alternative, most often with the current market prices in Belgium and in rest of Europe, it will be more expensive if you just run it in the same way. So that's definitely a way to do some cost savings with the electrification.
And again, it's not an investment that is triggered by this matching objective. It's usually triggered by regulation that's incoming on really pushing the move towards electrified assets. Cedric, thanks for the question. So repeating it, is there a minimum threshold of energy consumption required where energy matching becomes relevant to pursue? Well, I don't think so. In principle, it's always better, regardless of the size of your consumption, to chase a higher matched scenario. But what we do see is that the financial benefits that you can gain, they are larger in companies that have some exposure to dynamic tariffs, because due to the increased penetration of wind and solar in the grid mix, you see a correlation between sort of high availability of renewable energy and lower prices on the grid. So the companies, they are typically having high consumption, say larger than 5 gigawatt hours per year. We really see lots of these spot price exposure with them, and they can do the best deal financially while moving to this higher matched production and consumption.
All right, great. And I see two more questions. Thanks, Tom, for your question. So are you delivering mainly data insights, or are we also integrating steering? Yes. So basically, I summarized your question there a bit. So we are integrating steering. So the customers we work for have usually a production control system, let's say a DCS or a SCADA system that they use also to control their production line. And what we basically we have we get their data in, we do some calculations, and we give them back a software signal through an API that they integrate it into their production steering. Simple example. Customer of ours, they have a water purification system that was triggered based on sensors in the huge storage tank that they had, and now basically in the past it was just triggered like, oh, it's almost empty, let's get the machine running. Now we offer them a second signal that also indicates when electricity prices are very interesting for them, and usually you see here that you focus on the heat map. What you see often in the market is that when there's like low prices, also the carbon intensity of the grid is usually lower. So cost savings and getting, let's say, greener electricity on average, they work perfectly hand in hand there.
Now, of course, the API signal is less beautiful to show to people, so that's why we didn't include it. Yasmin, you asked, is this hourly matching also possible for companies that don't have a lot of own renewable assets? Definitely. We do see a trend towards more and more PPA contracts. They also get smaller and smaller and more attractive or democratized towards smaller companies too. There it's very important to include data access in your contract so that you can, for an offsite renewable energy plant also include this reasoning and this data into your local steering. So it's definitely possible.
And then maybe a last question before we end the event, since we're 30 minutes in now, is a question from Koen. Thanks. What do suppliers think of your system? Additionally, is part of your solution based on energy sharing? I think what do suppliers think of our system? We are collaborating with one supplier in Austria, who were looking at it to work together and basically offer our solution to one of their customers. So I think suppliers, are positive, but they also see we also see that there are some risks for suppliers, given the fact that basically you're gonna make it harder for them to predict the total amount of electricity consumption at a certain time in their portfolio.
We help them as well.
But we help them as well with that. So it can be a win-win, right? If you send our forecast and our indication towards the supplier, it can help them to better nominate and to better forecast their energy consumption. And it's part of our solution based on energy sharing. Energy sharing is not we integrate with energy sharing, meaning some of our customers, they do use energy sharing between their sites. And so that, of course, we take into account when making the optimized signal. So if a customer has, for example, one site with lots of solar power and they do energy sharing with another site, of course, we take it into account when calculating this optimized signal for when to steer their energy demand. So we take it.
And we have we have a virtual scenario builder that you can anyways, like next to the physical reality that you have, you can also do simulations with sleeving different sites together, maybe also with peers to check the impact. So that's definitely something we support. Good. We had great fun, I think. At least I did. Nice. Thanks for the good questions as well. And as mentioned, stay tuned for the next webinars, and we look forward for other discussions.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.